If you're a new teacher or thinking about becoming a teacher, I've got some tips to help make your first year go more smoothly. Hi, I'm Christy. I'm a middle school science teacher with over 20 years experience in the classroom, and I love helping teachers empower their students by helping them take ownership of their learning. If you like this video and its tips, feel free to share them with your other teacher friends so that they can also benefit from them. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for other teacher tips. Okay, so you're a new teacher just getting started into your classroom and ready for your first year. Here are some tips. Tip number 1, find your tribe. That's right. Surround yourself with other educators that you can count on to help you. Now, this could be at your own school, within your own department. It could be other new teachers at your school, or it could be on social media. Find a teacher Facebook group where you can share your challenges, you can ask for ideas, you can bounce ideas off of them, new ideas that you have. This is a place where you should feel comfortable asking for help and support and getting new ideas from other teachers. So it's super important as teachers that we don't stay confined within our own classroom, that we actually go out and meet other educators and get ideas and tips and support from them. So gone are the days where a teacher only had their own school to work in, and sometimes that meant that they were on their own if they were the only teacher teaching that subject. Nowadays, with social media, there are so many groups out there that you can count on and rely on and find. So find your tribe. Get a small group or a large group of teachers where you can, again, get the support that you need. Having your tribe this year is going to be really beneficial for you. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, create a routine. You're going to want to figure out your daily routines and your weekly routine. How are you going to start your class? Are you going to have a warm-up, a bell work activity? Are you going to have the students write down the agenda, write down the homework, write down the standard? How are you going to start your day? Because in the very first few minutes of your class period, guess what? That's when you are going to be taking attendance or passing out notes that the office has given you, sending notes for students. So those first few minutes, you're not going to actually be teaching the students. No, you're going to be doing a lot of the book recording type deal, the administration side of the teaching job. So what are you going to have the students do while you're doing all the administration and record keeping job of being a teacher? What are the students going to do? And then how are you going to end your class? Are you going to have a daily ticket out the door? Are you going to have them do a daily pair share? Are you going to have 5 minutes where they're doing reflections? How are you going to end your class period? And then what about transitions? How are you going to break it up? If you have an hour-long class, how are you going to break up that class time? Because I got to tell you, having students sit for 1 hour in a classroom and trying to concentrate that long is going to be too much. So to help with your classroom management, you're going to want to break up your class routine into about 10 to 20 minute segments. So how are you going to break that up? What are you going to do about every 10 or 20 minutes that can get the students talking, standing, engaging, moving around, having them just get and talk to each other or get up and move every 10 to 20 minutes? That is actually going to help your classroom management and keep the behaviors down in a classroom. So what are you going to do for that time? And then for weekly, are you going to have different days of the week focusing on different things? Are you going to have quizzes on Fridays? Are you going to have Wednesdays being a special day? Like, what are you going to do? Once you've figured out what your classroom routine is going to look like, that's when you need to stick to it. Keep going. Every single day, you're going to want to make sure that you're following your routine so it becomes a habit, and then the students get used to how your classroom runs. Then with your routines, also think about how can you get the students involved. If you are going to be collecting homework daily or even weekly, how are you going to collect the homework? How are you going to pass the homework out? Could students help with that process? Could students help with passing out papers? Could students help with collecting papers? So think about within your routine, your daily routine that you're going to have, what are some tasks that the students can do to help and support? Because getting the students to help and support, again, gets them up and moving and saves you time so you can be working on something else. So my tip number 2 is by creating a routine. Tip 3 is to build meaningful relationships with your students. The best way to limit behavioral problems in your classroom is to really build those relationships. Students that want to be at school, that want to be in your classroom, are less likely to get in trouble that will prevent them from being there. So build those relationships. Find out what your students are interested in. Find out what they're doing outside of school. Also, show the human side of you. When you make a mistake, own it. Talk about it. Explain how that's okay and it happens. If you don't know an answer to something, that's okay also. Just say, I don't know. Let's look that up. Or I'm not sure. Let's figure this out. How can we figure out the answer? And work with them. Because being more human, being honest with the students is going to have them respect you more. And it's going to show them that, it's okay if you can make a mistake, then they can make a mistake. If you don't know the answer, it's okay if they don't know the answer. And then also show them some things about you. Talk about some stories. You don't have to get like super personal, but maybe if, something happened to you, maybe you were bullied in middle school or high school, talk about that. Talk about how it made you feel, right? If you have children, right? And maybe those children have some difficulties, talk about that. Talk about how they're struggling and how you're helping them and what they can do. Show the human side of you. Now, building relationships, this is not something that's going to be fast. It is going to take time. That you have to build trust with them. They have to understand that they can trust you. So it is something that's going to take time. However, in the first few months of a school, the students are kind of like testing the waters. They're seeing how it is. They're on their best behavior. By about after the second month, that's when they're going to start pushing the boundaries, right? If you are building those relationships from the very beginning, by the time those 2 months pass, you'll have started to build that foundation with those students. They're less likely to test the boundaries with you as much as they are with other teachers. This is something that happens to me all the time. I have so many students and the other teachers complain about their behavior problems and what they're doing in their classroom and how they're driving them crazy. And yet I don't see that in my classroom. I mean, in the 2021-2022 school year, I gave 1 detention the whole entire year. And I had other teachers that were complaining almost daily about some of the same students that I had in my class. And in my class, because of the relationships I built with them, because of getting to know who they were as a person, having conversations, asking about their day, asking about what they're doing after school, what they did that weekend, just building that relationship, those students didn't really act up in my class as much as they did in those other classes. So building relationships is huge for limiting those behavioral problems. Tip number 4, find out what your teaching style is and your classroom management style. Everyone teaches differently, and what works for one teacher is not going to work for another teacher. That's why it's so important that you actually get out there and do visit other teachers to look at their teaching style. If you get an opportunity to go and visit other teachers' classrooms, when you're going there, I want you to look at their teaching style, their classroom management style. You're going to have those teachers that are very quiet. They're very reserved. And yet those students are super attentive. Why? What is it about that teacher and the way they're teaching that allows them to be super quiet and super reserved, and yet those students are not acting up, right? Because you're going to have other teachers who are very quiet, and those students are going crazy, and they're talking back, and they're being disruptive, and there is no classroom management going on, right? Then you have other teachers who are just what I call high energy teachers. So that's what I am. I am what I call a high energy teacher. I just come in with a lot of energy every single day. That is who I am, as a person. I am a high energy person. I cannot be that type of teacher, which you'll hear the teachers say, "Oh, don't smile, be very strict at the beginning." I can't do that. That is not me. I tried that my first year of teaching, and it didn't go well because that is not who I am. I am not the type of teacher that can be, straight-faced, no smiling, super strict. That's not my personality, right? I am the type of teacher that when my students come in, I am greeting them. Before COVID, it was a handshake every single day. Every single student, every single class period, shaking your hand, welcoming them to my classroom. Now, I play music when they come in, and I change it up. Every Friday, we play the Friday song because I stopped doing it one time, and I was told by so many students, "Where's the Friday song?" So yes, it became a routine. It became a habit. I greet them there. I have other students that when they come in, we play rock, paper, scissors. That's the first thing. Rock, paper, scissors, welcome to my classroom. Others, I have a conversation with them. I'm greeting them. I'm at the door greeting my students, bringing them into my classroom with a positive, upbeat energy. So when they enter my classroom, no matter what happened before, they're coming in and their mindset is changing because they're coming into a classroom now where there is high energy, positive vibes coming through. So it's kind of hard to be, upset as much as they were or in a bad mood and then come to my classroom. But that's my teaching style. So what is your teaching style? Find out what will work for you and how are you going to, get that classroom management. Again, figure that out. Are you going to have the students be involved with the classroom routine, classroom expectations, classroom discipline ideas? Because again, that's something else you can do. That's what I do. I have my students be part of the classroom expectations process and the classroom discipline process. They come up with the expectations and they come up with the consequences. Now, the caveat of that is that you have to be okay with those consequences. And they have to be something that you're willing to follow through on. Do not give the false threats. Don't say you're going to get detention if you do that and then don't follow through with that. If you don't want to stay for lunch detention, like that is something you don't want to do, then don't threaten with lunch detention. I don't give lunch detention. I am not going to waste my time and give up my lunchtime because someone else, one of my students, is choosing not to follow the expectations that they came up with, right? That's torture to me. I'm not doing that. So for me, if it's going to be a detention, it's going to be something that I'm willing to do. And I'll do it only on the times that I'm going to be after school, which is one day a week, unless I have other times, right? But figure out what is your classroom management going to be? What are your consequences going to be? What are you yourself willing to do? And make sure that you're not spending all your mornings, lunchtimes, after school, doing discipline with your students, right? Do not torture yourself more because of your students. Figure some other way out. What are some other maybe consequences that you can give them that are not going to also affect you? So again, figure out your teaching style, and it might take a few years to do that, but figure out what type of teacher you are and what's going to work for you. All right, tip 5. Focus on 1, maybe 2 strategies at a time. Do not try and do everything. Trying to do tons of different strategies at the same time is the quickest way to teacher burnout. That's right. Doing too much is going to be a way for you to get super frustrated, have no time for yourself, and eventually you're not going to love teaching anymore. Eventually it's going to be too much for you. So what I want you to do instead, I want you to focus on 1 or 2 strategies that you're going to do for your first year, 2 years, 3 years. That's right. Keep the same strategy for a couple of years. So that way you can get really good at it. Become really good at that strategy before adding on another one. So think about all the different things that you've learned. Maybe you learned about blended learning. Maybe you learned about the flipped classroom. Maybe you learned about science stations. Maybe you learned about menu choices. Perhaps you learned about the gradual release of responsibility method. Figure out which of those strategies that you want to do and do that one, and that one only. Maybe 1, definitely 1, maybe 2. But then put the other ones on the back burner for now, right? They can still be ideas, but you're not going to focus on them. So if you're going to focus on flipped learning, then that means you're focusing on just doing the flipped classroom and implementing that. If you're going to focus on science stations, you're only going to focus on science stations. You'll save the flipped lessons for later, for a few years down the road. If you are going to focus on menu choices, then that's what you're going to focus on, making a menu choice for every single unit. Science stations, flipped classroom, again, can be out the door for now. Focus on the one strategy and get really good at that. Make the other things that you're doing just basic, easy, right? You will more than likely have a textbook or some type of curriculum to follow. So I would say during your first year or 2, 3 years, just follow the curriculum they've already given you. And then add that 1 or 2 strategies on top of that you want to implement. And that's it. That's what you're going to do. All right? Because if you try and do too many, if you try and do science stations with menu choices, with the flipped classroom, you are going to overwhelm yourself. And again, that's the fastest way to teacher burnout. So those are my 5 tips. But before we go, I have one more bonus tip. And this bonus tip is pretty important. And that is to learn to play the game. That's right. Let's be honest. Teaching, it's a game. You need to figure out how to play the game. And every single school and district is going to play the game differently. So what I want you to do is I want you to observe your school, your district, and the teachers you're working with for the first few weeks, few months, before you jump in with all these ideas. Is your school, does it have a school culture of being open to new ideas? Or is your school culture set in its ways, where we do things this way and this is how it's done and no one rocks the boat, right? Are your teachers that are in your own department, how do they work together? How do they collaborate? Is there collaboration? Are some teachers more open to ideas than others? Do they work together, or is it every man for themselves? Also observe, what is the relationship between the students and the teachers, right? Do the students respect the teachers at your school? Do the teachers actually respect the students? What about between the teachers and the administration? Does the administration respect the teachers? Do the teachers respect the administration? How about the administration and the students, right? Are the administrators creating a culture at your school that holds students accountable? Or do those students know that they can get away with anything? So you want to observe that, because you don't want to be that teacher that comes in with all these wonderful ideas that I know you get with your teaching programs. You have all these new great ideas, but you're going to find out that in some schools that, yes, the teachers will love that. Share your ideas. I want more information. I would love to try that out. That sounds great, and they're going to listen to you. But you're going to find that there are going to be other schools where you have these ideas and they will shut you down super fast. And it will be like, I don't want to hear what you say. We don't do that here. We're going to do this, and we're not talking. This is how it's run. This is how we do things. This is what's going to happen. Figure out those cultures, right? I will tell you, in a school, administrators come and go. Teachers are the ones that usually stay. So if you have a school where the teachers themselves work together, collaborate, the teachers themselves have a great community, a strong community where everyone's helping each other out, that's a school that you'll want to stay at. If it's the administrators who are great, but the teachers are closed off, probably not a school you want to stay at, because again, administrators come and go. Teachers usually stay at the school for much longer. So those are my tips for new teachers that are ready. Let me know how it goes and what you think. Thank you for watching another Adventures in ISTEM and Beyond video. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more Adventures in ISTEM and Beyond videos. For more ideas on how to incorporate science, technology, and skills for life into your classroom, go to adventuresinistem.com.